Thank you very much. Thank you, PyCon Italia, for having me. This is an honor and a great excuse to come to beautiful Florence. Fun little story, it actually has to do with air quality. I was late on my plane. I got here very early Thursday morning, and I didn't get my clothing and my luggage until very late last night. So I was actually worried that I would affect the air quality with my clothing. But I'm fresh, I'm clean, so it's not my fault. So that background is kind of a bummer, right? It's kind of gross. September 2020, it was known as the Red Day in San Francisco. I was living in San Francisco at the time. And the entire day was, The entire day was red, dark red. Birds wouldn't wake up. There was no wind. It was really, really freaking creepy. And it was because of the wildfires that were happening all upon the west coast of the United States. It was just creating horrible air quality. People were having all sorts of problems. And this is one of the days that we saw outside the window where it just did not get light. And this happened throughout West Coast for many, many days, for many, many years. It's kind of subsided because we kind of ran out of forests to burn, which is a really, really sad thing. But if you do a quick Google, we've lost cities, Paradise, California, the entire city was just razed. Mismanagement, climate change, all kinds of fingers are pointed. Climate change being a big one. But it was really sad. Let me make it more sad with some sad introductory stats for all the wildfires that we had. 41,580 square kilometers of land just gone, just razed to the ground. 58,258 individual fires occurred within California within that year. 0.7 kilometers square average per fire. So it wasn't just like a small campsite fire that got big and then just died out quickly. No, these are big ones on average. 13,887 buildings destroyed. That's not just cabins or homes in the woods. That's gas stations. That's chemical warehouses. That's things that's throwing up really bad toxins in the air. Financially, $19.8 billion USD lost. And that's within California, Oregon, Washington, and then all the untold financial damage caused from a loss of commerce within those areas. And then we're estimating 1,200 to 3,000 excess deaths from exposure to wildfire smoke. That's not the fires. Fires killed people definitely. But the effects of smoke were almost a little bit more deadly. Also, we learned about fire tornadoes. You never see one. I mean, I never see one. I've never seen one, but I saw it on the news. And it scared the crap out of me. These are just two, but there are multiple. It's when you have super hot air because of the weather, plus the wind, plus the fires. It just sucks up all the oxygen and it creates these really small, localized squalls that will create these. So, wildfire smoke, how does it affect us? Well, it causes eye and respiratory tract irritation. My lungs were horrible. My voice was deep. I sounded very sexy, but not in a good way. Reduced lung function. You can't go outside. You can't run. I mean, I don't really run, but I couldn't do outdoor exercises. I couldn't do chores. I couldn't do my woodworking, things like that. Exacerbation of asthma and heart failure. So those that have pulmonary disease or asthma or any kind of, long-lasting condition that will affect them, smoke's just going to make it worse. So how do we actually measure wildfire smoke? It first starts off at PM 2.5. That's particulate matter 2.5 micrometers and smaller. So that's actual particulates of the smoke, the wood that's burning, the houses that are burning, everything that's burning, it's in little tiny pieces of matter in the air. 2.5 is small enough to pass through to the deepest part of the lungs and into the bloodstream. Anything bigger will just stay in the lungs or just be kicked out through your cilia. But 2.5 and smaller is the bad stuff. That's what goes into your blood. AQI is a computed value based off of 2.5 to convey the health risks. 2.5, like the particulates, might not be bad. So we're right in front of a street, a thoroughfare. We're breathing in higher particulates. Those aren't good, but they're not as bad as, say, chemical particulates from a chemical I don't know, do you have like any kind of like an air quality index mapping system in Italy? You like colors? Americans don't do numbers very well, so we like colors. Color, easy. Green is good. Don't worry, green is right now. I've been checking it ever since I got here. We've had good air quality. And then it goes progressively down to scarier colors. This is maroon, and that's really, really bad. When the red days happened, we were in purple. And that was really, really just very, very scary. That was very worrisome. And then we had maroon happen a couple times overnight when we didn't even know. That's pretty cool. So I actually created something. I put some stuff together to actually create a localized air sensor. Because I was looking at maps that were provided to us either by our local county, our local government, or just weather stations. But they were never fast enough. They weren't real time. And they didn't reflect my local area. So I was next to a lake. I was next to a highway. And I was next to the San Francisco Bay. So all those things blew air around, but also retained air, so I never knew what the air quality was inside my little hyperlocal area. So this little guy, it's about $15 USD. It's a particulate matter sensor. And it uses lasers, which is awesome. So it has a little tiny, tiny fan. And it sucks in air, shoots that air with a laser, and it counts the amount of diffusion from the pure laser to the laser that went through the air. And it could determine the actual amount of particulates that are through the air. And not just the size, but, not just the count, but the different sizes too. So it can tell me values below 2.5, values above 2.5. It is important to note that you can't actually tell what is in the air. There is another sensor that they're releasing that will use machine learning to tell me what kind of chemical compounds are in the air, which is really exciting, and I'm going to add it to this as soon as I can get my hands on it. But for now, this one just tells me how much stuff is in the air. And it computes it out to bytes. So I added it to a Raspberry Pi initially, but then I realized the Raspberry Pi was a little overkill because I didn't need an operating system to read the data. I needed something even smaller, and I could get away with something smaller. Because that way, it can make it cheaper, it can make it smaller, and it would consume less energy. And we can't find Raspberry Pis anymore. So, Raspberry Pico Ws, though, are pretty great. Just some of those stats right there. It can run MicroPython, it can run CircuitPython, C++. I'm trying to get it to run JavaScript, because I think that they need to learn how to use this stuff too. But it's not very easy, of course. It has wireless. It does have Bluetooth. It's going to have an update, so you can actually run Bluetooth on it. 264 kilobytes of RAM. It's pretty fast. It's pretty amazing. $6 USD. That's even better. And I bought it in bulk. I bought 20 of these, so the price dropped down. And here it is right here. I 3D printed a little box. This is a big box because I'm not a very good physical designer of objects, but I can make a box. The air sensor breathes in through here, spits out through this little line, and the Pico W is connected via wires in here, and it's running right now off my laptop. There's one in the back of the room that's running off a power bank. I have one running in my room. I learned this the hard way. We take out the card power dies. It's running off of 3 AA batteries. I will have one in a veranda, and I have one just sitting on my table in my room, so we can watch that. So these run on very low power, but it's still connected to the wireless, and it's still running the sensor, which is pretty cool. So I'm sending all this data to Redis. Those are my overlords. Open source, NoSQL database. Anybody catch Paul Ford's talk yesterday? It was on migrating to NoSQL. It was a really good talk. He's a dev advocate for MongoDB. Fantastic service. We both swim in the same circles. He's a tuna, I'm a salmon. You want us on the same sushi plate? Like, we're not competitors. We love each other. We run in memory, not on hard drives. So it makes us very, 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 very fast. And we can store key value pairs. So strings, numbers, sets, sorted sets, time series, which I'm going to be using here. Store JSON, query that JSON, store streams, probabilistic data structures, Bloom filters, things like that. It's pretty cool. Also created by Salvatore Sanfilippo, also known as Antires. He's a huge contributor to open source. He's a creator and primary developer of Redis, and he might be here. I don't see him. OK. He's kind of like a real big guy in my industry. Going to rest. All right, so some actual code. This is running on, this is MicroPython. Do you see a huge difference? No, you don't. It's not very huge. This is running on the PicoW, and I can just use Visual Code to run this with a little extension that uploads it to the machine, and I can see it running. So here I am connecting to wireless, and here I am connecting to Redis. That's really all I have to do. The great thing is there is a library for Redis that you can run for the Pico. Pico does require specific hardware libraries and specific libraries just because it's very, very small. But more often than not, it's not too hard to create. So here I'm actually reading the sensor. So raw reading equals sensor.read. That's all it takes. It'll give me a large object of different readings. The PM25, which is what I'm looking for, PM21, PM2, PM1.5, anything larger. So I just go through all that. I pull out what I actually want. Raw reading PM-UG, that's micrograms, per M3, so that's cubic meter. I'm looking for the 2.5, that's the PM2.5. And then I run it through an algorithm that converts that to AQI. That's the actual health index. Air quality index that we actually look at, we can figure out. Also, the PicoW unit comes with a temperature sensor for free. So why not just include that as well, in case you want to know the temperature. And then right here, results equals redis.xadd. Now that's going to be adding this reading to a stream. Now I'm going to be adding a target, which is, I'm naming all my different sensor units. Otherwise, there's no point in, I'm going to call this podium front or risotto podium. Back there, I'm going to call it risotto rear, because it's important to kind of know where the location is of all these sensors. I'm also including in the stream PM2.5 value, the AQI value, and the temperature value. And I'll talk a little bit about streams in the next slide. On the right, you see just some little housekeeping code. I want to know which sensors are live. So every 5 minutes, they're going to set a string that says, hey, I'm alive. And right here where it says redis.set, see that I'm creating a TTL, that first argument here. Over there. That's, I'm creating a string right there, TTL colon, and then the sensor location. So every 5 minutes, this sensor right here is pinging to Redis. It's creating a string, TTL. And for this one, it'd be risotto colon podium. And TTL means time to live. So after 5 minutes, this string is going to die. So that way, I can actually see what units are active out in the field at any given time. OK, so a stream, the data structure real quick, is you can think of as an ordered list of objects. So an ordered list of an entity that contains any amount of key values. There's no schema to it. You don't have to keep it that way. We have target, PM25, AQI, and temp on every single stream. Am I cutting out? Yes. Yeah, OK. Cool. I'll turn this off too so we don't argue. OK. So each stream or entry ID that you see right here is going to have, am I still talking? Can you still hear me? OK. Each of these entries is going to have a value from, say, this one that is named office. So office has a PM25 of 4, an AQI of 16,
a temperature of 67.75. Now the stream keeps everything in order. And you can see right here, the stream entry ID. What does that look like? Timestamp, yeah. So everything is created by default with a timestamp. And so I let Redis create that timestamp. So this has a chronological storage of every event within that stream. So if I can do it with one of these units, I can do it with as many units as I want. And it's not really that hard. One interesting thing to note is whenever you see a entry ID with a number starting with 1 instead of 0 at the end, that's a sequence number. So that means that there was a collision at the exact same time. Very rare, but when two entries with the exact same timestamp happen at the same time, it'll just add a sequence number. So that's why you see those 1s or those 2s at the end. So once I have that stream, that's just my huge, large queue of information. Afterwards, I can start parsing it out and turning it into different fun, neat things. So I can turn it into a time series. A time series is just a long ordered list of a timestamp and a value. Somewhat similar to a stream, but a time series, you can slice it around, you can play with the ranges, you can do some interesting information, do some aggregations and averages and whatnot. I can store everything in JSON. I can use it to trigger notifications, SMS, things like that. And I can also query that JSON if I want to find date ranges where the average air quality was bad or the average air quality was good. So I can compare that to other factors, such as it was raining, or it was the weekend, or everybody went to a concert and left the city or something like that. When Burning Man happens in San Francisco, it's wonderful. The air quality is so much better. So creating a time series is just built into Redis. So what I did, and this will all make sense why I'm creating time series, I'm reading from the stream. And I'm reading a stream entry ID, which if I just want to read the most recent one, I'll give it a $sign. Otherwise, I'll pass it an actual timestamp. And you'll notice that I'm calling block 50,000. So I'm going to just sit there. This is a looping script that just sit there and wait up to 50 seconds and wait for a new reading. And as soon as that reading comes up, it will execute the rest of the code. So I'm pulling data out of the result. And then down here at the bottom, I'm creating 3 different time series. Similar to what Paul said with MongoDB, where we're in memory and we're not constrained by SQL, we can actually use data a lot. We can have duplicates. We can have large amounts of small pieces of data. So I'm creating 3 time series. And it's just Redis, TS, and then add. The first argument is going to be the name of my time series. So the TS key prefix, say for this machine, will be, again, risotto : podium. The naming convention for Redis is to separate everything with colons. So PyCon : Italia : 2023 : risotto : Justin, to get my location or something like that. So I'm creating 3 time series. And once I have that time series, I can offer it up to any kind of visualization software. So Grafana was the first one I picked, and so I stuck with that. You can do many different ones. It's not a problem. And I'm using the simple JSON plugin, which just sends requests for a time frame to and from, and it says, give me this data. And this is just a continuation. I, of course, have this on GitHub that I'll be able to share with you. It gives you instructions on how to acquire the hardware, how to set this all up. There's 3 different scripts that you run, one on the Pico, one to consume the stream and turn it into a time series, and then one to actually provide an API to Grafana. And this is what you get. So this was my spare bedroom between 1435 and 1545. It is interesting the air quality on average lowered or got better. It's kind of hard to, but of course the air quality was really good to begin with. So I had every room in my house powering one of these, and it was really interesting from a personal standpoint. When I cooked in my kitchen, all the air was being sucked out of there and into the sunroom. So I was cooking and I was watching the air quality, and it wasn't really changing, but my sunroom was going really bad. And I was like, well, I'm not a bad cook. What's going on? And it was just, you know, all the air, the cooking vapors and the oils and things like that would amass in the sunroom. So the sunroom had a higher air quality index. So it was less quality air, and it would stay there a lot longer. And I would also use this to create some JSON. Here I am doing that xread command again, pulling out all the values, and then right there, that's how I set JSON. I'm setting JSON into Redis. Redis is not just key value, now it's JSON. You can parse through JSON, edit, update, things like that, and then query through it. And then I can do bonus SMS notifications. So this is just an extra thing. Here I'm creating an array of 12 empty values. If I have those empty values add up to a larger sum, that means that after 12 readings, which is a minute, if I have bad air throughout a minute, then I should get notified. Otherwise, I get texted every 5 seconds. And I learned that the hard way. And yeah, I just used Twilio. You can use any other service. This is also an excellent opportunity for you to use an emailing service, or even cooler, you can trigger a relay, which is not hard. You might shock yourself a little bit in the development mode, but it's not that very painful. You get used to it. Yeah, you can turn on fans, you can turn on windows, air purifiers, you can close windows, you can open vents, whatever you want. You can also share this data externally to Purple Air, which is a website that amasses crowdsourced data values. You can send notifications to your Alexa unit to actually speak into a unit, you know, hello, your room is bad. Get out of your room, the air quality is bad. And yeah, email notifications, and then I'm working on a little heat map of my actual house to show how the air quality changes throughout the day. The sun bakes one side of the house, things are released, the sun cools, and you know, sun goes into the other side of the house. How does the air quality change? I really want to find that out. So, the repository is right here. It's under Redis-developer, lots of fun projects with Redis. It gives you the Pico code, the consumer services code, the API code, STL files for printing, instructions on how to put this all together, and some data sources that I used to actually gather all of this information. And this is open source, of course, so please build it, improve it. I would love to get some feedback on this. And if you are curious about Redis, I do teach courses at the Redis University. If you have searched YouTube on Redis, you've probably seen my face as a thumbnail, and we're always on Discord chatting it up. So, yeah, thank you very much, and breathe easy. And one more thing, sorry. Here's the actual air quality. Let's check out right here. So this is the hotel. Wait, no, that's the hotel room. Don't look at that. It's stinky in there. Let's look at the podium. There we go. Not bad at all. So the top, let's see, around right here is at 54. So I might have been talking really closely to the unit. And then we look into, looks like the back unit died because my power bank probably went out. But if we look at, say, the hotel room, the air quality is pretty good. And then we look at the veranda. It's a little bit higher just because it's in front of that street. It's off-putting gases and tire dust. So, cool. Questions?
Thanks, Justin. Maybe you can go back to the slide with the QR code for a second, because I think some people here in the front missed it. I just noticed that. So just give me a little nod if you're done, and we can go back to the stats again.
It says that the QR code campaign has been disabled for some reason. Your QR code scanner is working fine.
Okay. I'll pop this link to, it's just a GitHub link. I'll throw it out in the Discord. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for calling that out.
All right, so then we can start with the questions. The first question is, if the connectivity drops, do you lose the result, or do you cache them somewhere and send them later to the Redis?
It's a good question. So if the connectivity of the actual unit drops, it is lost. So I could create like a local queue, which is not a problem. The only problem is it can't exceed the space that is inside the Pico unit, because the Pico unit is small, 264 RAM. So I could work on storing that into the actual storage of the unit, the actual like memory, but that's just further work. So yes, you can create a queue to wait and for reconnectivity up, but for now, this just spits everything live to the Redis cloud.
All right, and can you do a pollen metrics? Can you measure pollen metrics with the current sensor setup, or is that not possible? For pollen. Do you know, is that the word? Pollen?
P-O-L-L-E-N.
Yeah.
Oh, pollen.
Yes.
Unfortunately not, because it only looks at size of things. But there is a new sensor that is looking at the actual chemical makeup of things. So this only tells me the particulate matter. So it will still warn you if there's a high amount of pollen in the air, which still would help. But yeah, I can't tell you specifically what's going on. There's more better and higher quality sensors that are out there that are more expensive that I could use, but this is for quick, cheap dispersal.
And did you see any correlation between the inside and outside measurements with regard to accuracy and maybe similar developments?
Yeah, so some of these have their own little quirks. Some of them tend to be a little bit higher than normal. So what I like to do is I'll have them in the same room within like a little cluster. And for each unit, I'll tune them to have the exact same baseline. When you have them on the outside, it is very volatile because the smallest puff of wind will change the air quality instantly. Sometimes you will get pockets of bad air. Sometimes you'll get pockets of good air. Inside the house, it tends to stay the same, but you can definitely tell when, say, like your HVAC kicks on, and if you have air conditioning or heater turn on, you can see when it's on, the air quality changes, and when it turns off, the air quality changes. And if you have a fire in the house or a wood stove, even a gas fire, it definitely reflects. You can see that.
All right. Did you face any challenges setting up Redis on MicroPython, or was it the special Redis library for MicroPython?
That's a great question. I am so happy that there is a company called Pimoroni, P-I-M-O-R-O-N-I, Pimoroni, based out of Nottingham, England. And they wrote code for the Raspberry Pico W for Redis, which was fantastic. So I grabbed that, thanked him profusely, ordered many units from them, and I just slapped it into the exact same Pico W as this code. And so it already exists. Could it be better? Yes, but it's great work on their part for not working for Redis. So we're probably going to fork it and work on it and add some more things eventually. But for my use case of just adding it to the stream, that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to get that data up there, then I can play with it later.
Awesome. Do you guys have any more questions? If so, we have some more time to discuss any additional questions. You can also raise your hand if you want to.
The driver code for the actual sensor is also freely available, and it's for the Raspberry Pi and the Raspberry Pi Pico W. So this one I selected because it was the easiest to use and the easiest to acquire too. So you can build this anywhere.
One question. So you said that one of your Raspberry Pis is running on the batteries, so AAA, those AAAs. How long does it last?
Well, I'm using a power bank that I've had for like 5 years, so that's my bad. I should have used better batteries. The ones that are in my room right now, those are running on batteries that are fresh, that I charged overnight. Those will run for 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours. And then if you have it running on just wall power, 5 volts, 2.1 amps, you know, the standard iPhone or modern Android charger, that's perfectly adequate. So. And you can run this theoretically on a solar charger if you had that set up. You just have to supply 5 volts, 2.1 amps.
Question, what's the sampling frequency of the sensor?
Yeah, so you can do down to half or quarter seconds. I chose 5 seconds. Realistically, if I was to create like permanent fixtures, I wouldn't do 5 seconds. 5 seconds is for the wow factor of the room. I would do more 10 minutes, just because greater changes aren't going to happen every 5 seconds. 10 minutes is when I actually want to go.
Time average, though, sampling and average, and just record one single.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can do an average. You can record your averages on a Pico and then send it up to the stream. You could run every quarter second and throw it up to the stream. I let the time series do the averaging because the time series is designed to do averaging for reporting and things like that. So, good question. Yeah.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thanks for sharing this interesting setup with us. And yes, thanks again to Justin.
Thank you.